Good. Chair now recognizes Mr. Moskowitz for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. By the way, how are you doing? Good? Okay. Mr. Bobulinski, over here, how are you doing? Good. So I just have a question. We've been at this for 15 months now in oversight. I know this is your first time here, but do you think Chairman Comer has proven that Joe Biden has committed a high crime and misdemeanor?
I believe with all the evidence he's gathered, yes, he's proven that Joe Biden has committed high crimes and misdemeanors.
Okay, and so I assume you believe Joe Biden should be impeached.
Well, that's up to you guys.
But do you believe he should be impeached? It's yes or no.
Do I personally believe
Yeah,
it?
yeah, you.
Under constitutional...
No. You personally, do you believe he should be impeached?
I do.
Okay, and you believe that because you believe Chairman Comer has proven that he committed a high crime and misdemeanor?
No, because I know that he committed high crimes and misdemeanors.
Okay.
I was involved and saw them happen.
Right, but obviously, with all the evidence, you must believe that all of these hearings for 15 months, that the chairman has proven that, right?
You re-ask the question?
Sure. I'll sum it up. I assume you believe he should be impeached, but my point is that the chairman has not yet moved for that. And so, look, Chairman, we got like 3.5 minutes here. I mean, let's just do the impeachment. I mean, why continue to waste millions of dollars of the taxpayers' money if we're going to impeach because you believe you've shown he's committed a high crime and misdemeanor? What are you waiting on? Let's just do it. I mean, by the way, we got Chairman Jordan here also, the double chairman. Why aren't you guys calling for the vote in your committee? When is it going to happen? When can we tell the American people you're going to stop wasting their money and just call for the vote on impeachment?
Gentlemen, yield?
Sure.
We don't do snap impeachments like you guys. We actually do the facts. We do oversight according to the Constitution.
You're never going to call for it. You're never going to call for it. I mean,
now you can predict. You can predict the future. How do you know?
You guys only have 6 more months probably in power, right, until the election. So are you going to do it in 2 months? Are you going to do it in 3 months? Like, tell the American people.
Does the Constitution put a time limit on oversight?
So
I don't think I didn't read that in the Constitution.
If you believe you can't call for the impeachment now, then what you're admitting is you haven't yet proven that he's committed a high crime and misdemeanor. You haven't proven it yet. Otherwise, you would call for it, I assume.
We're doing our work.
Okay, so they haven't proven it, right? They haven't proven he committed a high crime and misdemeanor. Otherwise, we would call for impeachment. So look, the chairman knows me well. I mean, I'm just here to help him, right? And so I just think we should do it today. Let's just call for it. I'll make the motion, Mr. Chairman. I want to help you out. You can second it, right? Like, make the motion to impeach President Biden. Go ahead. It's your turn. You second it. No, nothing. Okay, we got nothing. So I want to, with my last couple minutes, show the American people that they're never going to impeach Joe Biden. It's never going to happen because they don't have the evidence. Okay, this is a show. It's all fake. They just want to do these hearings. It's not leading to impeachment. They're lying to their base on Newsmax and Fox, leading these people to believe that they're going to eventually impeach the president. It's not going to happen at all, ever. Period. They don't even have the votes, even if they had it in committee. They don't have the votes on the floor. They know that. They got members resigning rather than taking a vote on the fake faux impeachment. Just ask Ken Buck, who said the speaker ain't going to get me to take an unconstitutional impeachment vote. I mean, boy. I mean, so, look, I mean, if these hearings were a success, right, if what we've been doing for the last 15 months had convinced the American people that Joe Biden committed a high crime and misdemeanor, you can be damn sure they would have called the vote by now, right? But they want it to go on. They either want it to go on because they don't have the evidence.
Are you asking me a question?
No, I'm just looking at you.
Oh, okay.
But if you want to talk to me, we can talk.
Well, no, I think you haven't read recent data that shows American people are well aware of the Biden's corruption.
Perfect. So then ask the chairman why he hasn't called for impeachment, Tony. He's right here. Ask Comer. Hey, Comer, how come you haven't called for impeachment? I'll do it. Watch. Hi, I'm Tony. Hey, Chairman, how come you haven't called for impeachment? When are we going to have the hearing? When is the vote going to happen? I mean, you believe it. He believes it. He says it every day on TV. I just don't know when we're going to have the vote. I mean, let's just go.
Are you asking me to hold the vote?
No, I just like looking at you. Yeah. We can save the taxpayers millions of dollars. So, I mean, look, I used all of my time to show that this vote is never going to happen because they have no evidence on Joe Biden. I yield back.
Gentlemen's time's expired. Chair now recognizes Mr. Burleson from Missouri for 5 minutes. Switch mics. Restart the clock.
Who served in prison for felon? Not me. You have everything ready. Keep talking. You'll join your friends.
We'll get you a mic. Do you want to go to that one?
Apologies.
All right, we good?
Now we are.
All right. I want to start with Galanis. Mr. Galanis, you've heard the expression, say it, forget it, write it, regret it. Have you heard that expression? Mr. Galanis?
Yes, I'm here. Congressman?
Have you heard the expression, say it, forget it, write it, regret it?
Yes, I have. It was a practice that we used in our business.
In whose business?
Business with Hunter Biden and Devin Archer.
Okay, so it's their
Generally
expression.
referred to as Biden.
Let me ask you a question. Who is Haris Youssef?
Haris Youssef is a Ukrainian investor originally from Syria, a longtime colleague of Dmitry Firtash.
So he's a colleague of Dmytro Firtash. He was mentioned earlier this hearing. Who is Dmytro Firtash?
He's a Ukrainian oligarch very close to the Kremlin who made his fortune primarily in trading gas from Gazprom, the Russian state oil and gas company.
So connected to Vladimir Putin, correct?
Very much so, yes.
Yeah, in fact, during Hunter Biden's deposition with the committee, he justified his role. This is, I think you'll find this comical. He justified his role on the Ukrainian Burisma board by saying, in essence, that it was his patriotic duty, that he was serving, freedom, because there were, this is his quote, there were two gas companies inside Ukraine at the time. One of them was a state-owned, which was highly corrupt and connected to people like Firtash, which was directly going into Vladimir Putin's pocket. The only independent company was Burisma, end quote. Now, my question to you, based on this, he's disparaging Mr. Firtash, and yet, are you aware that that Mr. Biden, Hunter Biden, did business with Mr. Firtash?
Yes, I am.
So let me ask you, what kind of financial transactions occurred between them?
What Haris Youssef described to me, and then I was also described to me by others, including Devin and Hunter, was a $5 million payment that was made by Dmitry Firtash, is handled by Haris Youssef through Hunter Biden's law firm. That was deemed a success fee in order to quash an outstanding indictment for which in the United States.
So a Putin-connected Russian oligarch wired over $5 million to Hunter Biden's law firm for what activity? What was Hunter supposed to do for that $5.5 million?
He was supposed to perform in quashing the indictment that resulted in an arrest warrant for Dmitry Firtash, who is
being charged in the United States. Yeah, being charged in the United States in Indiana. So he's supposed to quash that, use his political influence to do so. So my question is, of that money, the $5 million, $3 million made its way to a company that you set up with Devin Archer called Inbloom. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
And finally, from that $3 million, there was a transfer that was made, and I've got a copy of that, the bank record to prove that, of $275,000. Do you recall transfer?
I do.
And it went to which account?
Rosemont Seneca Bohai.
Rosemont Seneca Bohai. So despite
Correct.
what Hunter said during his deposition, based on your knowledge, was Hunter Biden connected to Rosemont Seneca Bohai? Was he part owner?
Very much so, and he said as much and had direction and control, and it was a beneficiary of the account. So there are emails that document he directed monies to be dispersed from that account, including to himself.
Now, it sounds like, despite what he's saying, what he told the committee, that this guy was a bad hombre, basically, that this Firtash guy connected to Putin. and therefore he had to get on Ukraine. And yet yet he had no problem doing business for this corrupt Russian oligarch connected to Putin. In fact, had no problem taking $5 million and a direct transfer of $275,000. Would you agree?
I agree with that, yes.
Okay. Now, Mr. Bobulinski, and I've got just a little bit of time left. Sorry, very little time. So I want to ask you, for God's sake, Hunter Biden is doing all of these transactions, doing all of this business, and yet his father is vice president. And we're to believe that his father isn't aware of all of these. He's been on the phone calls, he's been in the meeting, and yet he's not aware that his son is doing business with people connected to Vladimir Putin? Are we to believe that?
It's an absurd expectation.
Thank you. My time has expired.
Very good. Chair now recognizes Mr. Frost for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The claims made against the President of the United States have been so completely proven to be lies that even House Republicans now are admitting that it's time to close this case. Mr. Parnas, I have a few questions for you in limited time, so I really want to try to get through these. And I just want everybody to know, especially people watching at home, that you're like one of the most credible witnesses that we've had throughout this entire impeachment inquiry. First off, I just want folks to know, for people who aren't familiar, can you tell me who you were working for between 2018 and 2019?
Rudy Giuliani and Donald J. Trump.
And to be clear, you answered to Rudy Giuliani?
Yes.
You answered to Donald Trump?
Yes.
Directly?
Directly to Rudy Giuliani.
Yeah. When former President Trump and Rudy Giuliani flew you to Ukraine to look for corruption on the part of President Biden, did you find any?
No.
And following your Ukraine trip, Senate Republicans, Senator Grassley and Johnson, released their Burisma report, which the New York Times concluded was, quote, unproven allegations that echo an active Russian disinformation campaign, end quote. Mr. Parnas, are the unproven allegations that are at the heart of the Republican report the same fabricated claims that Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani sent you to Ukraine to go dig up?
Yes.
Last summer, you wrote a letter to Congress noting that when the media started to get tired of the smoke screens and using this, one of the authors of the Republican Burisma report would be your, quote, guy in the Senate to push all the information, end quote. What did you mean by that?
Senator Ron Johnson was our guy in the Senate. It was told to me that when we push the information, he's going to push it in the halls of Congress.
So when the media was getting skeptical about pushing disinformation after they've proven it wrong time and time again, the plan was to have a U.S. Senator, Ron Johnson, to push that disinformation even further.
Correct, because we had Congressman Nunes already doing it, so Senator Ron Johnson jumped on board.
This Congress, both Chairman Comer and Chairman Jordan, have centered this entire sham impeachment hearing on an FBI tip sheet. This tip sheet made wild claims about bribery that didn't even come close to being backed up. And in fact, it's all being proved to be one big lie. Mr. Parnas, is the allegation in the FBI tip sheet based on the same fabricated claims that Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani flew you to Ukraine to dig up?
Yes.
I also want to make it clear that the informant allegedly behind this tip sheet is facing criminal charges for lying about the Biden family and was a known fraud for years before that. The same fabricated claim kept popping up and getting smacked down over and over again. In fact, our colleagues at the Foreign Affairs Committee did some amazing work on this investigation and found that this lie dates back to December 2015, almost 10 years ago. Do you happen to know the article that I'm referring to?
I don't know the exact article, but I do know that the slide has started way back in 2015.
Started about 10 years ago. It was an article entitled, quote, The Ukrainian Scam of the Biden Family, end quote. And it was posted to a Russian language media website registered in a city in Russian-occupied Crimea. Mr. Parnas, do you have any doubt that this fabrication claim, the claim that Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani sent you to Ukraine to try to dig up more information on, is part of Russian propaganda and an effort to destabilize Ukraine and undermine our democracy?
As I sit here today, I have zero doubt that Russia's involved. This is a Russian campaign to interfere in our elections.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it from someone with firsthand experience. Look, to recap, There's no evidence that support allegations that President Biden engaged in corruption in Ukraine. We know this. Mr. Parnas himself has made it clear that we should have no doubt that the claims of corruption are lies and conspiracy theories rooted in a Russian effort to undermine our democracy, posted to a Russian language website over a decade ago. This is exactly what Putin wants. And over the years, Republicans have kept moving the goalpost. You just look at the past year, right? First, it was a bribe. Then it was Burisma, nothing. Then it was Hunter Biden's laptop, nothing but some like nude pics that we keep seeing here. Then it was supposed money laundering scheme that turned out to be a family member making a couple of car payments. And now Republicans on this committee have left the pretense of a crime behind and are moving the goalpost to influence peddling, which sounds more like what former President Donald Trump did in his time in office. Look, we've been laughing a lot about this, calling it theater and a sham, which it is. But I also want to bring up that this is really serious. Yes. I mean, we have members of Congress and this committee using Russian propaganda meant to undermine our democracy, to undermine our president. It's not just theater or laughable, but it's a betrayal of our democracy.
It is very serious, Congressman.
Yes.
Chair,
Yeah, yield back.
time's expired. Chair recognizes Ms. Boebert from Colorado for 5 minutes.
Well, Hunter asked for a public hearing. Here we are, and he is nowhere to be found. I guess Hayden really does run in the Biden family. Now, Mr. Bobulinski, in your testimony, you state, it is clear to me that Joe Biden was the brand being sold by the Biden family. In your experience, what is the value to Joe Biden in helping his family collect millions from foreign adversaries?
What's the value to Joe Biden specifically?
Yes.
Well, his children and brothers were enriched, which to AOC's questions earlier violate corruption statutes, RICO statutes, FCPA statutes, FARA statutes.
Yes, so you would agree that the Biden family was involved in this corruption and influence peddling and selling access to the federal government?
I do.
Mr. Bobulinski, in your experience, did President Biden play a more active or passive role in his son Hunter Biden's business dealings?
I quantified it previously as he acted sort of like a chairman. He showed up and shook hands.
He's been called the chairman.
Yeah, he showed up, shook hands, and that's all the Chinese, Ukrainians, Romanians, Russians, whoever was need. It's not what the Canadians, the Australians, and Americans need, but in those parts of the world, that's what they need.
Thank you. And now I'm going to switch over to Mr. Galanis. During his 2020 presidential campaign, then candidate for president Joe Biden said his son did not make any money from China. Did Joe Biden lie? Yes or no?
Yes.
Mr. Galanis, you are aware of the BHR fund that consisted of Bohai, a Chinese state-backed company, Harvest, a China company, and Rosemont, the Biden entity, correct?
Yes, I am.
And Mr. Galanis, you're aware that Hunter Biden formerly held 10% of that Chinese entity? And would it surprise you, if you were aware, that Hunter Biden held 10% of this entity well into his father's presidency?
You know, I'm aware that it was founded as a business that he owned 50% of 20% or 10% directly from the outset, from early on in 2014.
And would it surprise you, Kevin Morris, Hunter Biden's fake attorney, has testified that he now holds that interest?
I don't have any knowledge about that, so not much of this would surprise me.
Mr. Bobulinski, in your testimony, you stated the Chinese Communist Party, through CEFC, successfully sought to infiltrate and compromise the Obama-Biden White House during 2015 and continued through when Joe Biden left office. Would you agree that the CCP compromising the White House is a serious threat to our nation's national security?
I do.
Thank you. And now Joe Biden has leveraged his elected position to enable the Biden family, their business associates, and their companies to receive over $24 million from foreign nationals and their companies and their related companies. Biden is compromised and is a threat to our national security. After today, it's clear that Joe Biden is a bigger CCP asset than Fang Fang herself. Will we ever come to the agreement that it is far time that Congress holds the resident of the White House accountable for selling out the American people? Unfortunately, my colleagues to my left have a highly coveted made in China product, a brand, if you will, and that is Joseph R. Biden. Mr. Chairman, I yield the remainder of my balance to my friend from Florida, Matt Gaetz.
Mr. Parnas, how much time did you spend in prison? 4 months. 4 months. But you were indicted for crimes that could have resulted in you spending 50 years in prison, right?
Right, they were false crimes. The judge saw through it.
Well, you went to trial and you were convicted, right?
I went to trial, correct.
And the crime was that you were trying to acquire marijuana licenses, and you took money from a Russian oligarch, and you tried to use that money to go give political donations and do what you had to do to acquire marijuana licenses. Is that about right?
That's what the crime was. That's what the indictment was. Yeah.
Right. So it sounds like everyone here today, the only one working for a Russian oligarch was you. Right? I mean,
yeah, it was.
I just heard you.
I mean, it's public information.
Yeah, no, I just heard you
Congressman
wax
Gaetz.
poetic.
I got paid $200,000. You know how much I got paid.
You were really worried about our democracy, and you were here to warn us. But you were working for a Russian oligarch,
on
wanting
behalf
to
of
get
President
marijuana
Trump.
licenses. But then you didn't even do it. The fraud you committed against the Russian oligarch was that instead you spent the money on yourself. So, like, was that what you were doing to fight against Russia's aggression?
That's a lie.
Just taking their money? Well, that's what you were convicted of.
No,
but instead of spending 50 years in prison, you got 4 months. As this hearing continues, I look forward to hearing what Mr. Galanis thinks about how he was treated by the DOJ for telling the truth, as opposed to how you're treated for lying.
The DOJ didn't listen to the truth, because if they would listen to the truth,
The question Mr. Gaetz had is
they
for
didn't want to hear the
Mr.
truth. You can't handle the truth, Matt Gaetz.
Look, well, the truth for you is taking money from Russians to buy marijuana businesses and then going to jail and then coming here to lie about Trump.
You should know better than anybody.
Gentlemen's
what
time has
DOJ is
expired.
about.
Chair
You
now.
should know better than anybody.
Gentlemen's time's expired.